How far will the darkness go to bury the truth? In a shocking twist after Menglong's mysterious death, his grieving mother was beaten and forced to accept hush money, a revelation that has left the entire nation in fury. What secrets are being silenced? And who stands behind this brutal cover-up? Let's join Red Carpet Revealed to uncover the truth right now. The air was already thick with grief and suspicion when the latest revelation exploded like a bomb across the nation. Menglong's death had been a mystery that refused to fade. A wound that only deepened with time. Fans wept. Family members demanded justice. And the public whispered of secrets too dangerous to be spoken aloud. Then came the unthinkable. Reports surfaced that Menglong's mother, a woman who had stood courageously before cameras and begged for truth, had been beaten brutally and forced to accept hush money to stay silent. The news sent shockwaves far beyond the entertainment world. It was no longer just about the mysterious death of a beloved star, it was about power, violence, and the silencing of a grieving mother. Asked the question that hung over every headline: how far would those in the shadows go to bury the truth? The fury that erupted was immediate and uncontainable. A nation that had been mourning now rose up in outrage. Menglong's mother had already become a symbol of resilience. In the weeks following her son's death, she appeared fragile yet determined, clutching his photo while facing a sea of cameras. A trembling voice called out for justice, resonating with millions who saw in her eyes not just the grief of a mother, but the courage of a truth-teller. She refused to accept easy explanations. She demanded accountability. And for that, she became a threat. The attack itself was as brutal as it was symbolic. Late one evening, as she returned from a quiet vigil where fans had left flowers and candles, she was ambushed. Witnesses described seeing men emerge from the shadows, taking her down in an alleyway. Her cries pierced the night, echoing through narrow streets until neighbors rushed to help. When she was finally carried to safety, her face was bloodied, her body battered, her spirit shaken, but not broken. Within hours, whispers of hush money began circulating. Relatives revealed that men, dressed in suits and carrying envelopes thick with cash, had appeared at her home. They offered money in exchange for silence. A grotesque attempt to transform grief into a transaction. At first, she refused, throwing the envelopes back in their faces. But the threats that followed, against her safety, against her family, forced her hand. Cornered and terrified, she was made to take the money. Yet the story leaked anyway, spreading across social media faster than anyone could contain it. The outrage was volcanic. Hashtags demanding justice trended globally. Videos of vigils transformed into protests. News anchors reported the story with visible anger, some even breaking down on air. Commentators declared it the ultimate betrayal. First, Menglong was taken in mysterious circumstances, and now his mother was assaulted and silenced. The brutality of it all revealed not just cruelty, but a system rotten to its core. Outside government buildings, crowds gathered. Fans who had once chanted Menglong's name in sorrow now shouted in fury. Placards read, "You beat a mother. You betray a nation. Money can't silence truth. And justice for you, justice for all." Police tried to contain the masses, but the anger only grew. Mothers marched with their children, declaring solidarity with a woman who had been beaten. Fathers demanded safety for their own families. The case of one star's death had transformed into a movement about the safety and dignity of every citizen. The entertainment industry reeled under the backlash. Producers, actors, and musicians scrambled to distance themselves from any suspicion. Some spoke out boldly, condemning the assault and the hush money. Others remained silent, their refusal to speak becoming evidence of cowardice in the eyes of the public. For fans, there was no gray area anymore. One was either with the truth or complicit in the silence. Inside the family home, Menglong's father spoke to reporters with trembling fury. "First, they stole my son," he said, his voice cracking. "Now they beat my wife, hoping to silence us. But we will not be silenced. Not now. Not ever." His words were carried across every television and mobile screen, striking a chord with citizens who felt their own frustration mirrored in his pain. Investigative journalists dug deeper, uncovering links between the men who delivered the hush money and figures tied to the entertainment elite. Names of powerful producers and business executives surfaced, painting a picture of a cover-up orchestrated not by a few criminals, but by an entire network desperate to protect itself. The more they uncovered, the more it became clear that Yu Menglong's death was not just a personal tragedy, it was the tip of a dangerous iceberg. The public, already enraged, now felt betrayed on a grander scale. They demanded transparency. They demanded reform. And above all, they demanded protection for Yu Menglong's mother, who had become both a victim and a warrior in this struggle for truth. By nightfall, the streets glowed with candlelight. Were no longer silent vigils. They were defiant protests. Chants of justice for Yu echoed through the cities, growing louder with each hour. His mother's face, bruised and battered, became the rallying cry of a movement that refused to be silenced. Across the nation, across the world, one message was clear: no amount of money could bury the truth. The fury had only begun. If those in power thought they could end this story with violence and bribes, they were wrong. They had only awakened a force they could no longer control. The confession of violence against Yu Menglong's mother did not silence the people, it set them ablaze. What began as scattered protests after her assault swelled into a nationwide uprising. A movement that stretched beyond borders and shook the foundations of power. Citizens who once whispered in private now shouted in the streets. Mothers who wept for her pain marched with their children, declaring that no mother should be beaten for seeking justice. Others clenched their fists in fury, demanding safety for their families. Yu Menglong's mother, fragile but unyielding, had become the face of a fight that no one could ignore. Across cities, rallies grew larger by the day. In Beijing, tens of thousands gathered in front of government buildings, candles and placards bearing Yu Menglong's image. In Shanghai, crowds stretched across the Bund, chants echoing over the water. Even in smaller towns, citizens carried banners and sang Hu's songs, turning grief into defiance. The protests were no longer about one family, they were about every injustice buried by money and intimidation. The international response was swift and unforgiving. Media outlets worldwide carried the story, framing it not only as a celebrity scandal but as a human rights crisis. In New York, protesters filled Times Square, chants blending with the city's neon glow. In Paris, demonstrators lit candles under the Eiffel Tower. In Seoul, fans staged a tribute concert, voices trembling as they sang Yu Menglong's songs in unison. Across continents, his name became a symbol of the fight for truth. Celebrities joined the chorus. Singers dedicated performances to him, their tears visible on stage. Actors condemned the silencing of his mother. That an industry built on fear could not sustain itself. Some risked their careers by speaking out against corruption, their bravery inspiring ordinary citizens to keep marching. With each famous voice, the movement grew stronger. Possible to contain. Inside the family home, Yu Menglong's parents endured unimaginable pain. He stood tall. His mother, despite her bruises, appeared before cameras again. Her voice, weak but determined. Tired, they beat me to silence me. But I will never be silent. My son deserves justice, and so do we all. The world erupted in applause and tears. Her words replayed endlessly across television and social media. Her defiance turned her from victim to warrior, embodying the resilience of the nation betrayed. Investigations deepened. Journalists uncovered evidence that the assault had not been random. Documents revealed connections between the men who delivered hush money and powerful figures in the entertainment and business elite. Bank records suggested large sums moved quietly in the weeks following Yu Menglong's death. Whistleblowers came forward, alleging that files had been destroyed and witnesses silenced. Piece by piece, a portrait of systemic corruption emerged, showing that Yu Menglong's death was not just a personal tragedy but a crime protected by a web of influence. The fury intensified. Hashtags like Justice for Yu and Protect His Mother dominated online platforms. Petitions calling for international investigations gathered millions of signatures. NGOs demanded accountability. Foreign politicians condemned the assault as a violation of human rights. The case of Yu Menglong was no longer only about one family, it had become a global scandal that threatened to destabilize trust in institutions. Authorities attempted to quell the unrest. Police were deployed to protests, arrests were made, and some media coverage was censored. But each act of suppression only fueled the fire. Images of grieving fans dragged away by officers went viral, igniting fresh outrage. The people no longer feared silence, they feared a future where silence was all that remained. The assault on Yu Menglong's mother had crossed a line. transforming passive mourning into active rebellion. Amid the chaos, Yu Menglong's legacy soared. His music returned to the charts, not as entertainment but as protest anthems. His films were replayed, audiences watching them with fresh eyes, seeing in his performances the humanity that had been stolen. His face appeared on murals across cities, painted as both a star and a martyr. Fans carried his memory like a torch. His name shouted in chants that refused to fade. Hitler's trial, once the focus of the story, now seemed almost secondary. Their actions had been horrific, but the cover-up, the assault, and the hush money scandal had revealed rot that went far deeper. For many, the true villains were not just the killers but the powerful figures who tried to bury the truth. Calls for reform grew louder. Activists demanding transparency in trials, action for whistleblowers, and safeguards for families of victims. The fight for Yu Menglong had become the fight for systemic change. Months after the assault, protests showed no signs of fading. They grew more organized, evolving into a movement with clear demands. Lawyers filed appeals. Activists coordinated campaigns. International organizations pressured for independent oversight. Yu Menglong's case had become too big, too visible, too symbolic to ignore. It was no longer only about justice for one man, it was about justice itself. Through it all, his mother remained the heart of the struggle. Her bruises healed, but her determination never wavered. Each time she appeared in public, crowds erupted into chants of solidarity. She had endured the unimaginable, yet she refused to surrender. Courage reminded the world that no amount of money could bury truth, and no act of violence could erase love. The final image was not of the courtroom or the killers, but of a candle held high in the darkness. One candle became thousands, then millions. A sea of light stretching across cities and nations. Yu Menglong's mother stood among them, her face illuminated by the glow, her voice steady as she whispered her son's name. Around her, the world echoed the same name, louder and louder, until it became a roar. Justice had been delayed. Truth had been obscured. But hope had not been extinguished. The nation remained in fury. The people remained in defiance. And the world remained united in one demand: justice for Yu Menglong, and protection for the mother who refused to be silenced. The story was no longer about death alone. It was about life, his life, her fight. Movement that would not die. And until justice was delivered, his final cry, and her defiant stand, would echo across the world. Yu Menglong's mysterious death, the brutal attack on his mother, and the hush money scandal have ignited a fire that no force can extinguish. What began as grief for a beloved star has transformed into a movement for justice, truth, and accountability. Mother's courage in the face of violence reminds us all that silence can be broken, and that even in darkness, voice can spark a revolution. Thank you for standing with us through this powerful journey. At Red Carpet Revealed, we will continue to uncover the secrets others try to bury and bring you the truth that matters. Stay tuned, share your voice, and never forget, together, make sure Yu Menglong's story, and his mother's fight, will never be forgotten.